Sanctuary, Court Services, Part 4, compiled by Shirley Jean Street and read by Wayne T. Street. The priest was to be clothed in the pure white linen garments when he removed the ashes from the altar. The ashes were first taken up by the priest and placed beside the altar on the east side. Leviticus chapter 6, verse 10, and chapter 1, verse 16. When the time came to remove them from beside the altar, the priest laid aside his priestly robes and put on other garments. Then he carried the ashes outside the camp and poured them out in a clean place. Leviticus 6, verse 11. Ashes are all that will remain of sin, sinners, and the devil after the fires of the last day have finished their work. Malachi 4, verses 1 to 3, and Ezekiel 28, verses 18 and 19. When the purifying fires of the Lord have removed the last trace of sin, there will appear a new earth, a clean place, without one taint of sin upon it. And as the righteous walk over the face of the clean, pure earth, the ashes of sin and all that clung to sin in this earth will be under their feet. Truly, the type will then have met its antitype, and the ashes of all sin will be in a clean place. When the priest placed the ashes beside the altar, he was clothed in his priestly robes. The ashes represented the confessed sins of the righteous. When Christ bears the confessed sins of his people, he wears his priestly robes. But the time comes when he will place the sins of the righteous on the head of Satan, lay aside his priestly garments, and come to this earth clad in kingly robes to gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and do iniquity. Matthew 13, verse 41. Then all sin and sinners will be burned in the fire. Christ will not come out into the antitypical court, the earth, to complete the final destruction of sin in his priestly robes. Instead, he will be dressed as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Much of the typical service was directed by the Lord in a way to arouse a spirit of inquiry in the minds of the young, so that they themselves would ask for information. The Passover was planned so that the children would say, "What do you mean by this service?" Exodus 12, verse 26.